You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And my name is Adriana.
and we're going to get right into it. What is your hot take?
We don't know how to lead.
I am really excited to talk about this because one of my passions, I guess that you can call it, is really having conversations about leadership because I have been in, and there's a ton of people who listen to this podcast who can relate in really bad leadership experiences. Not necessarily the worst manager per se, but not maybe the best leader. So tell us more about what you mean by that. What do you mean that we don't know how to lead?
I think we don't give our behavior enough importance. We tend to give a lot of importance to our language. So if we say, let's be on time, let's work hard on this, or let's achieve this other goal, but we don't demonstrate behavior, it sends a very weak signal to people working with us. So I do think in general, we need to be better leaders, and that will help us achieve better companies and a better humanity.
So, really, what you're saying is there's too many people who will say all the right things because they know it's the right thing to say. But when it comes down to holding themselves to those same standards, they're not willing to do it.
Absolutely. So it becomes this, do as I say, not as I do, which is, I really think we need to revisit all of us, our daily behaviors, and have the same expectations for ourselves than those we have for others.
And, like, as a parent, it's really hard sometimes because I can say to my 6-year-old, like, when you're mad at someone and you don't want to, you don't wanna share, you don't wanna do what you're told, or they're being mean to you, you should just kinda, walk away. But then I find myself kind of, like, losing it when my kids do something that annoys me or bothers me, and then I'm like, "Oh, I literally just told her in you, the 6-year-old, have to behave a certain way, but me, the grown up in the room, doesn't have to follow the same rules." And I wonder if maybe we're kinda doing the same thing in our businesses.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your vulnerability because I think all of us go through those moments. But and it's about noticing, right? So if we use this example, I'm a mom of three boys, and I've been in that situation. I want to master my self regulation so that when I'm telling my 4 or my 5-year old to stay regulated or to, you know, walk away instead of engaging in conflict, they don't get to tell me, but that's not what you do, mommy. So I think looking at yourself first and then identifying the things you need to work on. And maybe we at least at work, maybe we'll stop preaching about skills we don't have yet. So let's preach about the things that we know exactly how to do.
I wonder too if there is, and this is a half-formed thought, so, go with me here. But I wonder if there's something to be said for, like, looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself, right? And holding yourself accountable, but also maybe just making sure that what you are saying out loud is what you're willing to do. So, for example, I am a workaholic. I will work 70 hours a week, but then I'll say to my team, like, oh, work life balance is very important and, all of those things. And then I'm clearly not modeling it because I'm sending emails at 10 p.m. and client communications at 12:30 in the morning. So is it that I need to change my behavior? Or is it that I need to be honest about my behavior? I'm 35 years old. I'm not gonna change the fact that I like to work a lot. So do I just be honest with my team about, like, this is how I work, but I don't expect you to do the same thing? Or, like, what is the balance there between who we really are and what we say?
So I think we have the right to decide who we want to be, yet we have to understand what signal our behavior is sending. And you can say to your team, I work all the time. I don't expect that from you. But even if you say that, for your team subconsciously, they're gonna feel like I'm not doing enough because she's still working at me. So one recommendation I usually have is if you wanna work all night, but schedule your emails so that they get to your team at 9 a.m. they don't need to know what time you were writing your emails, right? That's sort of irrelevant to them. And it shows that you want to keep doing what you're doing, but you don't want to send the wrong signal to your team.
Yeah, that makes sense. And especially with technology these days, like we have all of those capabilities. My email, I can write 100 emails in the night and schedule them all to go out, according to even the time zone of the person who's going to receive them, right? We can get real fancy with it. Or in my Slack, I can schedule a message to go out whenever I decide that it needs to go out. And I even have I got an email from someone once that said in the footer of the email said something like, I sent this email at a time that was convenient for me. Please feel free to respond at a time that is convenient for you. I'm like, I need to add that to my email because I'm notorious for a 9:30 at night email simply because that's when I was getting around to it.
Right. I think I love that you said being honest with yourself, which is absolutely important. So, yes, be honest with yourself. I will add, think about what it looks like to the other teammate. That's my only contribution there.
And I think too, you have to be honest with yourself too if you're gonna set expectations for your team, right? So if you expect your team to be available for meetings every day from 9 to 4, but then you say, "But we're totally flexible and you can, work the hours that make the most sense to you," and then you kinda fly off the handle when they aren't available at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon for a phone call. That becomes a really difficult, like, cognitive dissonance experience for our team because they're hearing one thing from us, like, "Oh, we're flexible. Oh, you can go do these things." However, if I call you at 3:30 on a Friday and you don't answer, then, like, are you really flexible, right? And we have to be honest because nobody wants to work in an environment where they feel like they're constantly under threat of being surprised, and that just goes back to almost like our innate human instincts, right? We don't wanna be surprised by the saber-toothed tiger jumping out of the cave and eating us, and that fear doesn't go away just because we've evolved to houses and computers and no longer caves and saber-toothed tigers, but we have to recognize as leaders that if we don't create a psychologically safe environment for our people, they're always gonna be looking for the saber-tooth tiger around the corner.
Right. And I think it connects to that feeling of or the development of trust. We are able to cultivate trust when our relationships are predictable. Every time we add a layer of unpredictability to the workplace, is that amygdala triggering, tiger is coming, like you said. So making it predictable will allow your employees to know what to expect.
So we talked a little bit about technology and how like, oh, we can schedule our emails to send, can schedule my Slack to send. So those are obviously great like quality of life things that technology has brought into our working world and our working relationships. But we've seen a huge evolution in the last, really the last probably 10 years, but especially the last 6 years accelerated by COVID, where we now almost entirely exist in our working relationships behind computer screens and through Slack and through email. Do you think that technology is helping us be better at this? Is it making us better or is it making us worse or is it just making us different?
I think is a combination of factors, is all of the above. So yes, there are many positive things in terms of performance and data accessibility and having information as fast as we need it. There is also the lack of authentic connection. And there is research about how sometimes if we start using all these additional tools, is almost like a performative team environment when someone shares a win and everyone shares an emoji, but they can see that just as another task. Like it's like, oh, now I have to celebrate this, and it's not even part of what I do. So again, it's a little bit of performative and not real team connection. And then lastly, it becomes more of a distance maker instead of a connector. So we can be very self absorbed by our own world just because we can put a comment somewhere, but we're not really creating deep connections with our teams.
And I personally, well, I 100% agree with all of that. I think one of the things I'm most concerned about is like the next generation of workers, and I feel like such an old person saying that, but because it's always like, oh, this next generation doesn't know how to, how to work, how to do things. But I do think that they are missing out on a fundamental like trickle down expertise or something like that because they aren't in the office. They aren't hearing, when I used to work in an office, somebody would shout a question from across the bullpen and somebody would shout the answer back. And even though I wasn't a part of that conversation, I was absorbing it, right? Because I was hearing it even though I wasn't invited to the conversation. And in virtual, that's not how that works, right? If you don't get to overhear and eavesdrop on a Slack
Right.
direct message, right? And if you're not invited to the room, you don't get to learn those things, and you're probably too junior sometimes to be invited to the room, or people don't even know to pass this information on to you. And I'm a little worried that not only are we gonna have this because of remote work trickle down expertise loss, but because of AI, it's going to get even worse because there's gonna be this assumption that you can simply go to AI for all of the answers, even though AI is only as good as the person who uses it. But if you don't know how to use it, then what do you do? So, talk to us more about your experience of how does AI change the way we lead, or do we not know yet? And what does that mean for our corporate culture?
I mean, the effect, I mean, I guess it's multi-layer, but I'm gonna start with our ability to think critically is going to diminish as we keep using AI, um, especially if we don't have original ideas. So for my team, one of the practices we have is we create our original idea on paper. We take a piece of paper, we write the original idea. If it's a new class we're gonna develop or whatever it is, original idea, and then we have AI enhance or poke holes or give us areas of improvement, but start with an original idea. We shouldn't lose our ability to generate original thoughts. And number two, I will say um, there is this distance with reality when we are working virtually and we are receiving written information that comes from a person but was generated by AI. Because sometimes we start thinking, oh, wow, she really gets it or he really gets it, and then we're gonna have them present this in public. And if everything was done by AI, the level of confidence is not gonna be there. They're not gonna be able to manage a Q&A. They're not gonna be able to explain absolutely anything because they're relying too much on AI. So even though I'm not anti-AI, I want to welcome it, learn from it, enhance, get some of my time back. I definitely want to protect my ability to think.
Well, and could you imagine, like, if a speaker was speaking on a topic, right? You paid to go hear a lecturer speak on a topic of their expertise, and they gave their whole presentation, and it was great, and you're, like, so excited, and they do that Q&A thing at the end where you ask questions. Could you imagine if someone got up to the microphone, asked them a question, they said, "Hold on, let me go ask my AI," and they went off and, like, typed into their phone for every single question that you had, we would all be actually very
Oh,
upset and frustrated.
yes. And I've seen that when, like, if I get really good project deliverable, but then I ask a question or how did you land here? It's like, I kind of don't know. And that's what makes me think, well, how much of this is it comes from my teammate real thinking and how much of it is really coming from AI?
Right. There's this feeling of, don't get me wrong, I love AI too, I use it every day, but, like, I have noticed that sometimes when I write a whole email by myself, I'm, like, really double proud of myself 'cause I'm like, "Wow, I didn't use AI to do that at all." And then I have a question in my mind of, like, "Oh, have I been over reliant on this tool? Am I losing the ability to think critically, to have unique ideas?" And because AI is built on a large language model, that means that it is trying to create a facsimile of what a human would say. And when it does that, it means that it's reducing all of our original ideas to the most generic form. Like we're regressing to the mean. And so you can see it. Like if you scroll through LinkedIn, I don't know how often that's like my main social media, where you can tell that somebody posted something. And then 15 to 20 other people copied their post and put it into their chat and said, write me something similar about this topic because they want to jump on the bandwagon of engagement. And so we're all kind of slaves to our algorithms and trying to get the attention in this attention economy. But it all starts to feel and sound the same because it all came from the same language model.
Absolutely, and I love that you call it, attention economy. That's genius. I love that term. I'm gonna steal it. And yes, I think AI is not the best way to produce content if you really want to grab someone's attention. And just like you, sometimes I scroll through my LinkedIn and I almost celebrate when I see an original idea that you can tell that person is really giving us something that comes from them. And then there is, I've also seen like the mishaps when they have a great post and then at the end it says, "Let me know if you now would like me to convert this," and they forgot to take that out. It's like,
Yeah. Or you're like, oh, or mine is sometimes like, it says like ChatGPT says, and then it does the actual sentence, and I'm like, oh, come on, like, and a lot of times, like, don't get me wrong, I can be lazy too, right? And my favorite AI prompt is actually more of a review prompt. I'll usually put it in like into the chat and be like, "Is this an original idea? Are people talking about this? Is this something that, is gonna get an eye roll from my audience because it's just some old recycled idea that's been rehashed over and over again?" Because sometimes, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think there is a difference between using AI to, and I think you made the comment, to refine, accelerate, and improve versus to generate and create. And those are two different thought processes that really require critical thinking. And I do fear that we are losing that.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of my favorite prompts, if I'm working on maybe a new class or new content for a particular engagement, I like to ask my AI to review my content and tell me what Stephen Covey will say about this. Tell me what Margaret Mead will say about this. So he has to go and find out how they think and sort of like poke holes on my theories. That is still protecting my creative ideas, but getting input. Like, how amazing if I could get real input from these two individuals, but your AI is able to see how they think and provide questioning for you. So again, that's taking it to a whole new level instead of write this email for me.
Does AI have a place in leadership? So, going back to your original hot take that we don't know how to lead, is AI a solution to us figuring this out, or is it another hurdle or barrier or thing we have to watch out for as leaders of our companies?
I think there is a place for leaders to improve their style based on AI. There are different ways in which we use it. So we use predictive index for our coaching clients, and I usually recommend them to take their predictive index profile, upload it into their AI, and if they're having a conflict with a person, have your AI tell you what behaviors might show up for you that you want to be aware of. So it's almost like preventative. It can help you with conflict resolution. And more importantly, the idea of prompting, even though the word prompt became popular with AI. But 17 years ago when I did my very first coaching certification, we learned about prompting in coaching. So asking the right questions in a way that is either supporting or challenging. And so there is that spectrum when you're working with your team. You want to be sort of supportive, but you're also be challenging so you develop them. AI can help you with that. So if you want to have a meaningful conversation, you can share the prompts you have planned for that conversation and tell AI, am I being really supportive? Am I being too challenging? Can you improve my prompts so that the other person can feel more open? Or you can also let it know this other person is really confrontational or this other person is really shy. So it can help you like fine tune your prompting. And again, is prompting is what we do every time we're having a conversation with humans, and now we only think about having a conversation with AI, which is I think is funny.
Considering all of the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else do we need to be paying attention to?
Okay, so I love the work of I mean, do they have to be alive?
No, no,
Okay.
it's anyone we can go read, listen to, learn from.
Okay, so Margaret Mead was an anthropologist, and she really has a lot of work around how human behavior can adjust culture and change systems. Powerful, inspirational, practical. Absolutely love her work. Stephen Covey on Speed of Trust and how to really lead in a way that protects the individuality of the other person. So I'm not trying to make leaders like me. I'm a type of leader and I want to cultivate whatever leadership style is in the other person. I love his work as well. Very practical, tactical, kind of like prescriptive. I kind of love when people give you a recipe and you can just follow it.
And if someone is really connecting with you, they wanna learn more, where can they find you online?
So I am on LinkedIn, Adriana Vaccaro, and I try to be active there through my messages and everything else, and or my website cultureredesign.com. And I do have a book portal, which is free. You don't even have to buy the my book to access it, and it has a lot of education, a newsletter, resources, calculators, leadership profiles, a lot of free access to information there.
And you can find me, Alyssa Nolte, on LinkedIn as well. If you find the Notorious Blank Killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under Alyssa Likes to Talk or search alyssanolte.substack.com. Adriana, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I love this conversation, specifically about rethinking how do we lead in this kind of culture? How do we make sure that our words and our actions match? Because no matter how many AIs we add into our company, we're still human beings at the heart of what we're trying to do here. So thank you for coming on and having this conversation with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.